What's up, storytellers? Welcome back to the Storytelling Lab podcast. Today, my guest is Stephen Pressfield, your favorite writer's favorite writer. And as you might be able to tell, I am not in the home office because today we are here in Stephen's neck of the woods in Los Angeles. And this conversation is going to be in person. Welcome to the Storytelling Lab, where filmmaking, brand, and business all collide. My name is Bennett, a filmmaker and an author, and for over 2 decades, I've studied how stories actually work on the screen, inside organizations, and most importantly, out in the real world. So each episode, I host one of the world's greatest storytellers to help break down the art and science of storytelling as a system, not just a skill. That means how stories create connection, how they move people emotionally, and ultimately, how they drive action. So if you want to learn to tell stories that do more than just sound good, but they actually achieve something, then this, dear storyteller, is the show for you. Stephen's new novel, The Arcadian, comes out this May. I got the chance to read it and we talk about the book, but you know the show, you know my style. We expand it out to talk about storytelling principles in general to help you, the storyteller, the filmmaker, the writer, understand how to craft your own stories, how to fight the resistance that you will face every day for the rest of your journey, and how to show up every day as the best writer and best storyteller you can be. So here's my conversation with Stephen Pressfield, and I hope that you love it. All right, so I want to talk to you a little bit about storytelling in general. You have always been, and you strike me as very disciplined. Even when we were hanging out yesterday, you're like, I can stay for a little while, but gotta work, and it's inspiring. I think a lot of people are inspired by that. Has that changed in time? Or has it not changed? Like, does discipline and motivation and your approach and your philosophy change? Does it get deeper or you get more disciplined? Does that make sense?
That's a great question. Let me answer it in sort of a little different way.
Sure.
Before I actually finished the first book, which I think I was like maybe 31 or something like that, I was completely a slave to my own resistance and self-sabotage, and I would just screw up and drop the ball, and I had no discipline whatsoever. And really, even in my upbringing, I didn't have any discipline. And it sort of took me down a divorce, my life fell apart. So that when I finally did, as you know from reading Government Cheese, when I finally did write the first book, I had saved money from working in an ad agency in New York, and I had enough money to live for a year, wound up to be 2 years. And I moved to a little town in Northern California, and I just locked myself in this little cottage, and I just said, I've got to finish this goddamn book, or I'm going to kill myself, And so that was sort of where I kind of learned discipline, because I thought, I've just got to do this. I've got to find some way to do this. I can't screw up again. And what I learned of discipline from that period, I haven't changed at all since then. And I am, if anything, the one thing I have learned a little bit, and I'm sure you can relate to this, Rain, is in a little more chaotic life where I might not be able to work every time, every day from 9 o'clock to 12:30. Maybe I've got to do it, in the afternoon or in the evening. But I've learned to kind of write on the fly when I have to. But the bottom line is every day I got to do something, My friend Jack Carr, the thriller writer, he's like a master of writing in Starbucks and on airplanes and in hotel rooms because, his life is, he's flying every which way.
Sure.
So God bless him. He's able to have like his own sort of portable mental hotspot where he can just sit in a plane and write, 2 chapters of the next James Reese story. God bless him.
It takes a lot of work. I found for me, when I really wanted to start focusing on screenplays specifically a couple of years ago, one, I reduced my minimum my minimum amount of output for considering the day checked off. It was a little trick because when I had that minimum too high, if I knew I wasn't going to reach 2 pages or whatever arbitrary number it is, then what would I do? I wouldn't show up. But when I reduced it down to like minuscule amount, then I would always at least show up. And let's be honest, it's like football is a game of inches, right? Like writing is a game of sentences. If I get one sentence, that is one more closer.
Yeah.
Now, what generally happens. You write a lot more than that if you
Yeah.
just sit down. But I have some days open it up, written a sentence or two, and closed it, and I'm like, all right, at least I showed up. And that has helped me build that habit of like, I count daily. I do the Seinfeld strategy of just the red X on the calendar. And so it helped me average like, it's like 5.6 days a week where, you know, I'm able to show up. But that really helped me is reducing it down to a minimum.
I do that too. It's exactly the way I look at it. If I can only get this much in, at least a day, it counts. Huge difference to getting nothing for that day.
Absolutely.
That's terrible when that happens.
That's another trap, another resistance. It's like, well, I'm not going to write 2,000 words today, so why even show up? I mean, write 200. Like, you're a tenth of the way there.
And like you say, sometimes you really surprise yourself with what you can get done.
Absolutely.
In a really short period of time.
Absolutely. And if you don't, hey, you still showed up. But often, most of the time, I would argue that's what happens is that paragraph turns into a page, you get into a flow, or just you unlock something like, ooh, now I know how to do that scene.
You know, the Muse is flying overhead.
Yes.
You're looking down to see, is Rain showing up? Do I see him in his desk? And even if she sees you for 10 minutes, that counts.
Yeah.
You get credit with her, you know? Sometimes she'll give you a lot.
This is interesting. You just said the Muse is flying around. Can we dive into that
absolutely,
a little bit? Is that how you visualize it?
Yeah.
Okay, I've got a similar thing. This is what is exciting to me. People talk about the concept of luck. And my stance on it, how I view it is luck, because we talked about it yesterday, how there's always that 10, 15% of magic of just timing, luck, whatever you want to call it, that has to help your job or your project or your creation. So I view luck as a sporadic force, a little like, you know, Tinkerbell bolt of lightning flying around. And if you're sitting on your couch doing nothing, is there a chance it could come by and strike you? Sure, a very minuscule chance. But I do argue that being out there, taking action, doing things, having conversations, making work, whatever it might be, puts yourself in a higher probability of getting struck by that bolt of luck, whatever you want to call it. That's my stance. It might not make sense if there are probability experts out there, but that's how I feel, because oftentimes things happen just because you went out and you did it, right? I made the movie and I put it out there and nobody saw it, but one person saw it who said, you got something there, yada, yada, yada. So that's what struck me when you talked about the Muse, looking around to see if you're working. Because if you're not, you're not going to sit on the couch and all of a sudden the Muse is going to be like, hey, here's a story, right? But if you are out there, it's like a reward.
I mean, I agree with that completely. That there's a quote from Picasso where he says, this is it literally, inspiration exists, but it has to find you working. And I've seen that a lot of people, other people have said very similar things. And I believe we're actually talking about two things here, Rain. One is in the real world, connections that you might make because you're out there. But the other is in the world between us on a lower dimension and the Muse on the higher dimension. And she is watching us, I believe, you know, whether that's anthropomorphizing it or whatever. But when we're sitting down and trying to work or reading or doing whatever it is, that counts with her. That somehow makes a connection, and then you will get inspiration will come. But you got to start. You know, what's the word? Prime the pump. You know, get the engine going. That seems to be the way it works.
Do you have, what makes a good day for you of work? Is there anything?
I would have to say, you know, to take a real profession, any day is a good day. Because you're showing up for the Muse and doing it. But a good day is when you get lucky and like the flow starts to happen and you kind of lose yourself in it, you know. But you cannot count on those days. So I'm a real believer in grinding. You know, that's really what we're supposed to do. Is just get in there, and when the inspiration is not there, take what the defense will give you. You know, and that's
good.
That's, you know, because the work resists us every day, right? It's hard. It's fighting. It doesn't. That scene we're working on doesn't want to give itself up to us, you know, and we have to go against it, you know. And sometimes, like in football, the defense is going to eliminate the long ball, right? But it'll give you the 3 and 4 yard completions. And so you just have to say, all right, I'll take those 3 and 4 yard completions.
That's good.
And just get what you can. So, and I think it's the same in writing, right? Sometimes you got to grind, and sometimes it's day after day after day you have to grind.
Absolutely. That's take what the defense will give you. It's so good. How long have you been writing now? 40 years?
Too long, longer
50
than
years?
longer than your father's been alive. I think I quit my first job in advertising in 1966, something like
Okay.
that. So a long time,
A long time. How?
with a bunch of hiatuses in
Yeah,
there.
yeah. How has the voice in your head changed, whether that's resistance or whatever we want to call it, or has it not changed? Are you still X amount of years, decades in the game? Do you still have that voice in your head? I know you say that resistance doesn't stop, but the story that you tell yourself,
Ah,
has that evolved over time?
that's another great question, and I haven't really thought about this, but for the first, I would say, from 1966 to 1996, 30 years, I didn't have a voice. I was writing screenplays, I was doing whatever it was, but the goddess still was, the jury was out with me, and it wasn't till The Legend of Bagger Vance, which was 1995 or something like that for me, that I found I was really writing from some deep core of myself that even I don't understand. So since then, it really hasn't changed, but it took a long time to get to that point. Something really good happened at that point, and the goddess decided that I'd paid my dues enough, and she was going to, give me a trail of breadcrumbs.
I know you're a big gym guy, and you like to show up also daily. Um, I think there is really something there for any creatives. What does exercise, what does movement, physicality do for creativity?
I do go to the gym at the crack of dawn every morning. Like when we met for breakfast, I'd already been out of the gym for like an hour and a half this morning. Um, but I'm not so sure whether it's physical activity or it's doing. I consider going to the gym rehearsal for when I'm going to sit down and try to write, because it's something I don't want to do. It's something that hurts, and it's something that I'm scared of. And so, but once I've done it, I feel like I've really got some momentum for the day.
Yeah.
And so then when I actually sit down and try to do the work, I feel, okay, I've got something going. Randy Wallace has a whole concept of what he calls little successes, that he tries to start his day. Maybe it's yoga, maybe it's, he counts even brushing his teeth as a little success.
Yeah.
So that when he finally does sit down and try to do his work, directing or writing or whatever it is, he feels like he's got, some momentum going. So that's what the gym is for me. But I don't know if it has to be specifically physical stuff.
That's a good point.
Like Donna, who we met this morning, she'd already walked on the beach at the crack of dawn. That counts.
Yeah.
That somehow gets the blood flowing, gets you out of
Absolutely.
out of your own head. Yeah.
It reminds me of the first person that helped me really understand how to approach meditation was Tim Ferriss. And he said something very similar. It's like he and me and many others that have tried meditation and failed don't have a good understanding of what it is. We think, oh, you're going to sit there, in this Zen state for 30 minutes. No thoughts are going to, like, I'm too ADHD for that. That'll never work, blah, blah, blah. Resistance, right? But he explained it as like, no, it's like if you do it for 20 minutes and for 19 minutes, you've got the monkey mind all over the place. And for that 1 minute, you had a little bit of clarity and focus. It's an exercise for the day, because all day long, you're going to have these distractions, coming at you. And the goal is to stay focused on what you're trying to do. So he's like, you've already worked that muscle. It's very similar,
that. I've never
right?
heard that or thought about that.
Yeah, and that changed it. So it's like, you're not supposed to be zen and thoughtless for 20 minutes. It's supposed to be hard, because what you're doing is stretching or warming up, which is the same concept that we're talking about with decisions and doing the hard stuff. It's like, if I wake up and hit the gym, I've already triggered that thing inside me that will push past the resistance, if you will, and now it gets easier for me to do that. And if you meditate every morning and you get that habit, it becomes easier for when my phone dings or whatever to not jump into that when I'm trying to write. So I see a lot of parallels there.
I've seen a thing with Arnold Schwarzenegger where he says when he opens his eyes in bed, in the morning, his mantra is don't think.
Oof.
Get up
Yeah.
and go.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that he does. Because when he says don't think, what he's really talking about is resistance.
Yeah.
That's what it's not thinking.
Yeah.
It's the voice in your head trying to sabotage you.
Yeah.
So get up and start to move. I love it. It's great.
I get a lot of flack from my wife because as soon as my alarm goes up, I'm like, I sit straight up and I'm out the bed.
I know exactly what you mean.
She'll take her time and roll around, and I envy that, but I've never been able to. I'm like, my feet hit the ground immediately. Staying in the same vein of fitness and movement and that sort of thing. My whole life, I struggled. I'm from Little Washington. I didn't see a lot of models of people who were athletes as I was and artists. They were very much two different worlds, right? And my nerdy, artsy friends would pick on me because, I'd be doing push-ups or you played sports, and my jock friends would be picking on me because I was in theater, right? And so I kept those compartmentalized for way too long as I was, growing up. Now that I've gotten older, maybe a little wiser, hopefully a little wiser, I see so many parallels between athletes, artists, and also now entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Yeah.
Do you see that? Like, what do you think is similar about those three specifically? And this is not a direct question. It's just a concept to explore with you, but you seem to get where I'm going with.
Yeah. I mean, one aspect is discipline, right? An athlete knows that let's say she's a sprinter or a miler or something like that, that you have to train every day and you have to train smart, right? But which is exactly the same as any creative field, right? If you're a ballet dancer, if you're a comedian, if you're a writer. But then another thing that athletes and entrepreneurs know is you also have to have a way to cut yourself some slack, that you can't, you can't overtrain or things just don't work. And the other thing I think that the many other parallels, but another one is that for all these is it's the long game. You have to be thinking in the long game, like maybe you're training for the Olympics 4 years from now, and you think about the intercollegiate meets or whatever that are going up as stepping stones to that one thing. And it's the same thing with writing a novel, right? It's the long game. Or even if you think about a full career, which I do, you think about a body of work. That's going to be 20 books or an X number of movies and X number of everything, which is quite a different mindset. Like when we went to that thing yesterday and they were talking about some certain screenwriters, beginning screenwriters, think, oh, I just wrote my script. I've spent 14 years on it. No, that's not the way to do it. No. It's got to be 1, 2, 3, 4, so I agree with you. Yeah, those three disciplines are very similar.
Yeah, the catalog makes a lot of sense, and then there's not so much weight and pressure on one to be successful.
Yeah.
You're not trying to make one hit.
Yeah, because it doesn't work like that.
No, I mean, it's like a baseball player, right? If you strike out once, big deal, right?
Yeah.
It's what's your percentage over the season? Yeah. Question, I'm curious if there is a story in here, or maybe in here in your heart, that you haven't told yet that you're dying to tell. There might be 1,000.
There isn't.
Okay.
But the reason for that is that I believe in the Muse completely.
Yeah.
And whatever, sometimes people might say to a writer or to anybody else, what's your 5-year plan? What do you think you're going to be doing next year? And I think you can't do that because an idea will come. The Muse will deliver an idea to you next January that's going to take you for the next 3 years. But you don't know what that idea is. The goddess knows what our arc is, and we don't. At least that's the way I've seen it. So I believe and I pray that there will be more ideas and they will be coming. But it's sort of like an actor. An actor or actress doesn't know when the next role's coming. It's going to come out of. It probably hasn't even germinated wherever in Quentin Tarantino's head yet.
Yeah.
To cast him. So no, I don't. I'm sure some people do, but I don't. I'm waiting for it.
Do you think about writing and releasing books at all logistically, like in terms of, okay, a Man-at-Arms, so maybe the next novel would be the Arcadian, or is it there could have been another novel?
It could have been another,
Yeah.
but it just sort of, instinct and the goddess kind of dictated that sort of thing, which is a little weird because like when we went to the WEA thing yesterday and they were talking about, they were sort of asking the beginning writers in the audience, they were advising them on what material they should develop, and it was always about, this is what the market wants. It's got to be, something big, something noisy, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And although I understand that way of thinking, I myself can't work that way.
Yeah.
I have to ask my own self what grabs me, and the payoff of that, Rain, is that the two books that I wrote that I thought were the dumbest, least commercial books, craziest ideas, were The Legend of Bagger Vance and Gates of Fire, about the 300 Spartans.
Yeah.
And those were the two that when they got out there in the real world, people really responded to, much to my surprise, So had I said to myself, I'm only going to do what I think is commercial,
Yeah.
I would have been completely wrong.
Yeah.
So I for me at least, I can't second guess the market, and this book, The Arcadian, that we were talking about, may be completely not what anybody's looking for.
Right.
But I don't care,
Yeah.
because the idea grabbed me and I have to do it.
Well, Rick Rubin said that, don't never worry about the audience. It's like just only generate like what's calling you or what you would like to see. And I've heard that sentiment shared a lot, even in the filmmaking space, of like, write the movie that you want to see.
I certainly believe that.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it? The Hail Mary, Project Hail Mary?
Yeah, they just came out.
I'm not even sure exactly what the idea is. I haven't seen it yet. But apparently it's a really wild idea that nobody would have thought of.
Yeah.
And it's apparently going great guns. So God bless, is it Mike Weir, who wrote the book? Anyway, God bless him. He did The Martian.
Yeah.
So he's thinking out of the box.
I don't think you can.
He's following his own star, and not playing to the market.
Pardon the interruption, but we got to pay the bills. Novelists, screenwriters, comic creators, nonfiction authors, marketers, founders, they all wrestle with the same beast. Structure that won't cooperate, threads that go missing, and the gap between vision and execution. Voca Tales, a Chicago startup, built the platform that will wrangle it all together. Think Canva meets Scrivener, but for storytellers, not content creators. Film schools use it to help their students brainstorm and build worlds and even break their narratives into tabletop games. Experts use it to help build their templates and their frameworks and their narrative structures to help enable others. And creators ideate, brainstorm, collaborate, and craft their content and stories. Uptales completes the ecosystem, direct access to world-class authors, literary agents, marketers, and coaches with over 20 million in total reach, who've spent their whole careers identifying authentic voices and having real conversations. Voca Tales is funded by Anubhav Srivastava, who lives in two different worlds, one closing over $1 billion in enterprise tech sales, and then spending 4 years crafting his own debut novel, The Whisperer. His philosophy, use AI for answers, but use human intelligence for understanding. His mission, tools that make you think, and experts that make you better. That's Voca Tales, Vocatales. Now back to the show. I forget who said it, but it's like, art is never done, it's just abandoned, that classic quote. Do you have a point, like when do you reach that point where you realize like, okay, this is ready, I'm ready to send it out? Is there a process? Is there a moment?
Yeah, there is, yeah. I mean, I think art is done. I think you do reach a point, A painting reaches a point, you keep noodling with it's going to be terrible, But like the book I'm working on now, that's the third Telamon or the fourth Telamon one, I can tell I'm probably 90% there. Mm-hmm. And I know, there are certain parts that I haven't really got right yet. But once I get them right, it'll be very clear to me that if I keep noodling with this thing, it's only going to get worse. And, I'll tell you, here's another. I had my first agent was a guy named Bart Fless, who was like 50 years older than me. He actually represented Anna East Nin and Carl Jung, among other people, and Bertolt Brecht. He was Austrian. But he used to say to me when I would get toward him, and he never sold a book of mine. I never made any money. But he used to say when I'd get to the end, he'd say, "How close are you?" And I'd say, "I'm close." And he'd say, "Give it to me." He said, it's close is good enough. Give it to me, because he didn't want me noodling around with something. And still, I wouldn't listen to him. I'd stay a little bit longer. But I do think that young artists particularly err on the side of laboring and belaboring something, because they're afraid, they're afraid that they're not going to have the next book, so they want to keep, and also they're afraid of judgment on this book. But I think as a professional, you got to get over that. Get it out there, move on to the next one, and move on to the next one after that.
Ship it.
Yeah, ship it, like Seth says. Yeah.
Exactly. If you view the world through the concept that we were just talking about it's a catalog, it's your career. It's a little bit easier to do that. If you're too precious about the one idea, then you're going to want to belabor it and beat it to death. And then the law of diminishing returns, and you start messing it up, right? Yeah. So I think that's the way to frame it for folks, is like once it clicks, it's like I'm trying to have, a whole catalog, not just one hit. It makes it a little bit easier to say, like, okay, this one's done, just ship it. And that's something I look up to you a lot about, is the cadence of release of, for a while there in the early 2020s, it was every year or almost twice a year when you're going back and forth between one of the nonfiction books, I forget, that came out in 2020.
The War of Art, or those things.
That series.
And family,
and I'd talk to you, I think the first time we were about to have a conversation on the show, you were just finishing one up, and then you're like, let's push it back. Let me get through this. And then 6 months later or 4 months later, you're already on to the next one. And so you clearly have that concept established in your approach, but I think a lot of people don't, especially aspiring. I don't like the word aspiring. But, people who desire, first timers, etc. They really tend to make it too precious.
Yeah. I think you have to have faith in your goddess, in the Muse, that she's going to keep delivering. I mean, there was a story about Cole Porter, who I'm sure nobody in your audience has heard of, but it's a great songwriter, right? It wrote, God knows how many great songs. And he used to write them for the movies. And there's a story that he submitted one of his songs to whatever, MGM or whatever. They rejected it. And his friend or whoever it was said to him, "Oh man, what are you going to do? They rejected your song." He said, "I got 1,000,000 of them. There's another one coming down the tracks, the next time." And I just thought, oh, that is a great attitude, And of course he did. He wrote like a bazillion songs. And so I think there is another trolley coming down the track. You just have to believe in it and let it come.
Absolutely. This is a little bit of a tangent, but we've never talked about, I know that you have a close relationship with Robert McKee, and we've talked a little bit about it, but never on the show. Can you talk to me a little bit about that relationship, what you've learned from him, and who he is to you in terms of your storytelling journey?
Well, Robert McKee, as you know, is a kind of a screenwriting guru who's been around for a long time. And he stopped doing them now, but he used to do these 3-day weekend intensives about screenplay structure. And when I was first starting out, I went to one of his things, and it kind of blew my mind. I never realized that there were rules, that there was an inciting incident, all is lost moment, a mid-act, a second act turning point, that kind of thing. And so he was great at sort of thinking about and the structure, how stories work. So he's been a tremendous influence on me. And then I met him and got to be friends with him. And so he would like to say, "Oh, Pressfield is my student," which I am, And so I really look up to him. I've stolen a lot of stuff from him. And, he's a wonderful guy. And he sure broke ground on so many things that screenwriters and any kind of storyteller, anything you can read or watch of Robert McKee's is great. Yeah, it's solid gold.
He's an icon, man. One thing that I think that all creatives, maybe even outside of that, share is this struggle of getting something made. The people at the event yesterday talked a lot about it, and the other panels shared that sentiment. It's a little bit of a cliche question, but I really try to serve those that are not necessarily at the beginning of their career, but struggling with that, right? And help them get their stories out to the world. I very much believe in the power of stories to have change, a transformation embedded in them, and whether that's a little bit that leads to a large, etc. It's my life's passion. So when you think back in your journey, which again, you've told us here today, like it was a long time before the first publication, you had many hiatuses, et cetera, et cetera. What would your advice be to that person who's in that stage of like, I'm struggling, I really, like, it's in my heart and I gotta do this. And I'm in the weeds, I'm in the pit, right? I'm in the dark forest, whatever you want to use. What do you say to that person that's trying to get their first story really told?
I mean, as we saw yesterday, we were together, we went to this Writers Guild series of panels, and a lot of that was established professionals up on stage talking to aspiring writers in the audience on this exact issue. And one of the things that they said was that there really isn't a kind of an infrastructure like the minor leagues where you can start out at a lower and go. There isn't, you know. It's just sort of blind luck, you know. Of can you find an agent, and can the agent put the deal together? And that's the weak link in my career. I mean, I don't have that dialed in at all. The successes that I've had have been sort of luck driven, a lot of them, you know? So, which is part of the game. But the other thing I would say is that the main thing is I'm speaking to aspiring writers now. Don't get so brainwashed by the social media culture of it's got to happen overnight. Something's gonna go viral and I'm gonna be discovered. Like for me, I was 52 years old before I sold my first novel. So you got to be in it because you don't have any other choice. So if you can, stick with what, like Rick Rubin would say, stick with what you love and just keep doing it. If there's any secret to this business or to any racket like this, it's just keep going. If you can keep going, the people that fail are the people who've dropped out. And it's really easy to drop out. It's so hard, right? And but if you can keep going, something good will happen along the way. I know that's not much to hang your hat on, but like for me, I really didn't have a choice. There was no plan B for me. If I tried to go straight or get a job in advertising or anything else, a blue collar job, I would be so depressed at the end of the day that unless I sat down at the keyboard, I was ready to kill myself, you know? So you just have to, it's a lifetime thing. It's a lifetime commitment. That's one good thing about the creative world. It's not like being an athlete where when you're 30 years old, your career's over. You know, as long as you're breathing, you can keep doing it.
That's a good point. That's the difference between athletes and artists.
And the other thing is, while we're talking about this, is it's possible to work a full-time job and have a family and take care of your kids and still keep basically the equivalent of a full-time creative career going. Because if you can carve out a couple of hours a day, you can keep it going. I know we can do the math. If you did 2 hours a day over the year, I don't know how many that is. What is that?
It's a lot.
700 and 800 hours or something, which is like 10 40-hour weeks. That's a shitload of time. You can do a lot in that.
Absolutely.
So there's no excuse for not doing it. If you could just carve out a little bit of time, it is doable.
That's the thing people overlook. It's compounding, right? It's the same thing as investing. It's the same thing as losing weight. It's like, it's a little bit over the long term. It's never this like get it all done right now, right? You dollar cost average and put $100 away a week. In 10 years, you're going to see that hockey stick curve, and people don't see that because they're at the beginning.
The other thing I will say is, like, I'm a full-time writer. I don't have to have any other job. But when all is said and done, I've got my day, I've done this, I've done that, I only get about 2 hours,
Yeah.
2.5 hours. So, somebody can have a full-time job, a
Yes.
family and everything, and find that same 2 hours and be on the same, level with me in terms of the time they have to do their work.
And you got to do what you got to do to like take care of yourself. I mean, there's this
Got to.
glorification of being only an artist, but there's no glory in being broke and not being able to pay your bills and feed yourself. And I would argue that when that is covered, you're at a much better place. I mean, you could also argue that struggling motivates people, but you got to take care of your bare necessities. Think of Maslow's
It can work
hierarchy.
both ways.
Yeah, that's fair.
Either way works.
That's fair. The event yesterday, Storytelling 360, called State of the Story, and they've been doing great things, but I've been talking with them, and eventually I'll make an introduction for you because I think they'll expand to documentary filmmakers and novelists. So it might be a good connection because that event is growing and growing more and more. So I'm glad you're able to attend. Another thing that I really look up to people, you said you were 52 when the first book was published. You've been writing for years at that point. My mother started her career, she's in real estate in Little Washington, at age 50. And so I love those stories of success that maybe came later in life because so many of us get caught in that trap, like you said, the social media trap of like, I need it to happen now. I've been there too, it needs to happen when I'm young, yada, yada, yada. So my question is it ever too late for it to happen?
I don't think so.
Right.
As long as your brain is functioning, it's never too late. And I'm sure we can see like Edith Hamilton, who wrote Greek mythology or whatever book she started at like, I don't know, in her 70s or something like that. So it's never too late. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, it still feels, I think I heard a conversation with Mark Maron, the comedian, who was talking with someone else that their success came a little bit later in life, and they said it very simply. They were like, "Why wouldn't it take 25 years? Like, look at what we're doing. We always see the overnight successes, or those that got it a little bit younger, and we judge ourselves on that, or social media land where it's highlight reels.
Yeah.
But he's like, why wouldn't it take 25 years of grinding to build something? This podcast where President Obama joins me, right? Of course, it's going to take that long.
Or certainly something like writing a novel. Why is brain surgery any? It's the same thing, right? If you want to be a brain surgeon or a concert pianist, you're going to have to put in not 10,000 hours, but 30,000 hours. So why is writing a novel or screenplay, which are really, really hard things to do, or directing a movie, why is that going to take any less? And I hate those stories. Even Quentin Tarantino, who seemed to be like an overnight success, that guy put in years, at the lowest level, being a video clerk in a video store.
Exactly.
But he was learning his craft, and we never talk about that. That's sort of, the part that doesn't show.
Right. It's so important, though.
Yeah.
It's absolutely so important. What's more important as a writer, even as an artist? I'm always fascinated with the duality of, like, even the show is the art and science of storytelling. And I believe they are two sides of the same coin. And it takes both, the emotional and the intellectual. What's more important to you? What's more important to an artist or a writer? The head or the heart?
Obviously, it's both, I think the sort of classic way a writer does it in the old school, like Thomas Wolfe, is they'll spew out 1,000 pages, right? And that's all over the map. And then their great editor will come in and, bring it down to 300. But that's sort of right brain, left brain. So for me, I will, as a general rule, I'll go on instinct and blast something out. And maybe not a first draft like of an actual all the way scene, but at least an outline or a concept. And then, so that's, in other words, right brain, pure instinct, pure creativity. And then I'll apply the rules of story structure, and I'll ask myself, do I have an inciting incident? Does it blah, 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 all those kind of things. And then I'll go back and forth. Instinct and then science, instinct and science. And I think when it all comes down to it, the art part is the most important part. Because that's what has the feel, that's what has the magic. I'm sure that's what Rick Rubin would say. Don't tell me how a song is supposed to be.
Right.
Just write what feels great. And the great stuff, a lot of times breaks all the rules, you know?
Yeah.
Rain, thanks
Thank you,
very
brother.
much for the
I
great
appreciate
questions.
it so
Thanks for the
much.
preparation that you did, you know? And I hope we had a conversation, not an interview, you know?
Absolutely. My name is Rain Bennett. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed that episode, do us a favor and subscribe to the podcast. If you're already a subscriber and you're enjoying the show, give us a review and let us know the value that you've gotten from it. We love to hear from our listeners and learn about the benefits that they're getting from the show. That's what fuels us, and that's what fuels the show. And if you've already subscribed and you've already reviewed it and you think there's someone else that would benefit from listening to this show, please share it with them. The more we grow, the more we can help you grow, and that's what we're here to do. Join us next time on the Storytelling Lab.